Chapter 20 deals with process costing. In Chapter 19, you looked at job order costing. And job order costing is the cost of all goods transferred to finished goods is equal to the sum of completed jobs. So we track costs by jobs. Here, in process costing, the cost of goods transferred to finished goods is going to be equal to the number of completed units times the cost per equivalent units. So when we're looking at our cost flow as it goes through processes or departments, as we learned in our previous chapters, we have direct material, we have direct labor, and we have factory overhead. And the indirect cost flow of direct materials flow directly. Those costs will be seen in factory overhead. The indirect labor costs will also go to factory overhead. Our direct material cost and our direct labor cost, those costs are in work in process. And then we allocate some factory overhead as well to work in process. And then once we complete those goods, they're transferred to finished goods. So we're going to be looking at the number of units that were completed and transferred to finished goods. And then we want to assign cost to those units. And so that's kind of what we're looking at. And so instead of assigning cost to jobs, we're assigning cost to processes. And we're looking at the number of units that were transferred to finished goods and going to assign costs based on that. And it's going to be assigned based on our cost per unit. And we're looking at, of course, our equivalent units of production. You'll see that. And multiply times those number of units that were transferred. I have to laugh at my writing on this. Okay? And so we look at equivalent units of production. We look at equivalent units of production. And our costs are accumulated for a period of time by a process or department. So we're accumulating those costs as they flow through a process or they flow through a department. And then the unit cost is computed by dividing those accumulated costs by the number of equivalent units of production for a period. And so I know it's kind of like, I'm still kind of talking Greek, but we're going to go over a problem here shortly, and it will definitely make sense to you. Our equivalent units of production, this is a concept of expressing a number of partially completed units as a smaller number of fully completed units. And so I think they give you an example in the book where if you have a unit of a product that's half complete and another unit of a product that's half complete, that means I have technically one full unit that's totally complete. And so the best way to kind of explain this is to look at a problem. So we're going to look at Quick Study 2010. We're going to look at Quick Study 2010. Okay, so looking at this problem, we have a company, has two manufacturing departments, assembly and painting. In the assembly department, they started 10,000 units in November. The following production activity and unit information they give us here on page 872. And so we want to first determine the physical flow of units. Basically, what I mean by that is that we had, remember they said they began work in process of 10,000 units. And so the information that they give us here, they say that we had beginning work in process of 2,000 units. So we already had beginning work in process of 2,000 units. And then we had units that were transferred out that were completed of 9,000. And then we had ending work in process of 3,000. So basically, I already had beginning in my work in process of 2,000 units. I started 10,000 units, so I need to account for 12,000 units. And basically, of those 12,000 units, 9,000 were completed and transferred, and 3,000 remain in ending inventory. Okay, and so then the next step is we want to compute the equivalent units of production. We do that in terms of our direct materials and in terms of our conversion cost. And those conversion costs are direct labor plus your factory overhead. Those are considered conversion costs. And so we want to look at it in terms of those 9,000 units that were completed and transferred out. So if I have 9,000 units that were completed and transferred out, that means I put in 100% of the direct material and 100% of the conversion cost. And then I had these 3,000 units left in an inventory. The 3,000 units left in inventory, ending inventory, they tell us in our information that they were 80% complete as to, direct material, and they were only 30% complete as to your conversion cost. And so what you want to do, change color here, you want to take the 9,000 units and you want to multiply it times the 100%. And so we get 9,000 equivalent units for direct materials, and we get 9,000 equivalent units for conversion. As far as those units left in an inventory, we want to take the 3,000 units times the 80%, and we get 2,400 equivalent units for direct material, and take 30% times the 3,000, and we get 900 units for conversion. So then we add those together, and my total equivalent units of production for direct material is 11,400, and for conversion it is 9,900. So those are my equivalent units of production. And so the next step is I want to compute my cost per equivalent unit. And so I have to look at the cost that I had. And they tell you that in beginning inventory, remember we had 2,000 units in beginning work in process, and they consisted of direct material of 996, and they had conversion cost of 585. So that represents the cost that we had already incurred with our beginning work in process. And then for the costs that were added this month, we had direct material cost, a total of 10,404, and we had conversion cost, a total of 12,285. So the total cost that I need to account for is 11,400 of direct material and 12,870 of conversion. And so what we want to do to get, remember this is cost per equivalent units. Here's my equivalent units, and here's my total cost. So to get my cost per equivalent units, I'm going to take my total direct material cost and divide it by the equivalent units for direct material, and I get $1. Sorry about that. And then I take my total conversion cost of 12,000 divided by 9,900, and I get a per unit cost of $1.30. I'm not sure why it's blocking out. Okay, so my cost per equivalent unit for direct material is $1, and for conversion cost is $1.30. And so now we just want to now allocate those. That's the last step, is to assign those costs. And so for direct material purposes, remember my equivalent units for direct material was 9,000 for those units that were transferred out, and then I got $1 per equivalent unit cost, so those costs are 9,000. And then for conversion, my equivalent units for those units that were transferred out for conversion was 9,000. And if I go back, if it lets me, it gets real ticky when I try to slide up and down. But we're going to try. So here they are right here. This is where I'm getting these numbers from. The 9,000 for the units transferred out for equivalent units for direct material, and then the 9,000 for conversion. And then when I get ready to assign costs to those 3,000 left in an inventory, I'm going to use equivalent units of 2,400 and 900. Okay, let's get back, slide back down here. Sorry, bear with me so I get back to the problem. Okay, almost. I'm going to get it to where you can see it. Okay, hopefully you can see this. I'll check it out when I rewatch the video. Okay, and so the conversion, remember, cost per equivalent units was $1.30, so I'm going to take the 9,000 times $1.30, and I get 11,700. So sorry about that. So the total cost that I'm going to assign to those 9,000 units that were transferred out is 20,700, and that's when I add those two together. Now I'm going to look at the cost that I'm going to assign to that ending work in process. Remember, I had 3,000 units left in ending work in process, and the direct material equivalent units was 2,400. You add $1 per equivalent unit, and I get 2,400. And the conversion cost equivalent units was 900, and I had a cost of $1.30, so I multiply that out and I get 1,170. And when I add those two together, the total cost assigned to ending inventory is 3,570. And so my total cost assigned is 24,270, which would be the same cost that we have here when we add them together. So this is just kind of a quick video to help you understand this whole process. I hope this helps. Good luck.